Now, Anne, the story that you contributed to the book is called From Atrocity to Blessing. And I just want to share some of this with our listeners. With this new piece, the puzzle of my life's story suddenly began to make sense. I had recoiled from touch as a child as if it were painful. I had been a withdrawn adolescent who preferred holding myself at a distance, studying life, rather than being actively involved in it. Oh my gosh. For me, there have been times in my life, I love what Marcy just said about where sometimes it's just hard, the hard time before the hope, where I wanted to study life rather than be actively involved in it. A fantastic story. Tell us what you're working on now.
Well, I'm currently working on a simplified, detailed version of the first 4 chapters of The Awakening Storm, which will be called Evading the Storm, Facts about Trauma and Tools for Recovery. I help readers recognize how trauma negatively impacts a person so they can better understand themselves and others and prayerfully help with trauma recovery. Because the average person in our country has been crippled by trauma, there aren't enough professionals to solve the problem, and the professionals themselves are often crippled by trauma. So I believe we all have to step up to the plate to solve this escalating problem of a traumatized population. In other words, most of us are living much smaller lives than what God intends for us, and it's time we fulfill our destinies, don't you think?
I love that. And I'll just share with everyone too, Anne, you wrote the foreword to the second book in the Becoming Women of Worth series, Stories of Trauma and Triumph. And you touch on that at some level. So fantastic. So your book, where can we find your book?
It hopefully will be coming out around Valentine's Day. I'm wanting people to encourage growth as an extension of love. When we really love someone, we help them grow. We help them be who God wants them to be. That's love.
What a perfect time of year to have that message too. Fantastic. Well, keep us posted. We want to follow you as that's coming out. Absolutely. Lynn, your story, we talked about this earlier, porn addiction. It's called Thank God for My Anger. Oh my gosh, who would ever think to thank God for something like anger? I love the title. And you wrote, I didn't know what to do, so I turned to my time-tested coping mechanism, denial. I closed the door and walked away. Looking back, I know I began a slow process of dying that night. This was one of my favorite excerpts from your story, especially the part about the time-tested coping mechanism, denial. Lord knows I've turned to denial many times early in my life. And then this idea of beginning a slow process of dying. Oh my gosh. Tell us what you're working on now and how to find you.
Well, you can find me at my website, and it's lynnmariecherry.com. I blog there, and there's a link to my 21-day devotional, Keep Walking. It's free. You just put your email address in, and you get an email every day for 21 days. So that's a tool that I just have available for women who are going through betrayal. Lately, I've had the opportunity to do some video blogging for affairrecovery.com, and that's the counseling group that my husband and I used when we were walking through the issue in our marriage. It's a fantastic resource for people who are dealing with betrayal, but it's been a little scary. I have to borrow from Brene Brown. I'm pretty sure I had a vulnerability hangover the first time that video blog posted. It's one thing to type those words and to tell the story and to put it out there in a book. Like, that's scary. But when it's your face talking out there on the internet for people to see, like, that's a whole nother vulnerability gulp. But it's been a blessing, and I've gotten some beautiful comments from women who are so grateful that there's someone else just letting them know they're not alone and that there's a way through. whatever they're facing, there's a way through those dark, dark times of our life, and light really does shine again.
Fantastic. So excited to see how God is using you and your husband both to help heal others and couples. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Donna, oh my gosh, your story. It's called Expanding My Territory. And Donna's story reads, after the delivery, it took me 2 hours to sign the papers giving up any right to my son. It was almost as difficult as listening for 5 days and nights to one crying baby alone in the nursery each time the others were taken to their mothers to be fed. Neither event, however, was as crushing as never knowing if he was loved or even safe. Oh, I'm getting all teary-eyed, Donna. Powerful words, a very powerful story. Tell us more. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us what you're working on. What do you have planned coming up soon?
Well, I've been working on a book that I think is very important, but I'm sort of stuck in the formatting. And the book essentially is how to stay at home and independent as long as possible. Things you need to do right now to stay out of a nursing home later.
Wow.
It deals not only with the practical sides of things, but for younger generations to understand how extremely difficult it is for some young whippersnapper to come into your life and say, you can no longer drive, I'm taking your keys. You have to move. You cannot stay home alone anymore. Those things are so hard, and as an assisted living manager, I saw that. So I had 100 parents to learn from, and I'm trying to get it all down to be a practical but still a humorous and uplifting message to those in the other generations who might be a part of helping this person, but how they can help themselves right now, no matter their age.
And
that's what I'm doing, and you can find me on my website, which is donnagpaul.com. You can hear me listen, read a prologue to the book, A Song in Every Silence. That's what I'm doing, researching the 20s for book number 3.
wow, book number 3, fantastic. Keep us posted on that, Donna. I want to help you promote that when it comes out and share that with everyone. I feel like our time just goes by so fast, when we get to have these very connecting and deep conversations. I love it. And I just want to share with our listeners also, for those of you tuning in, if you're interested in participating in a future Women of Worth book, if you're interested in sharing your story, if you have a story of hope and faith to share with us, simply send me an email at kristen@kristenclark.org. Type in the subject line, please send me WOW, Women of Worth, call for submissions. I will make sure to add you to my family list of authors and keep you posted on upcoming projects. I'm hoping to publish a new book, the 3rd in the series, Becoming Women of Worth, a little bit lighter in subject. It's going to be stories of sugar and spice and recipes for the holidays. I'm super excited about the stories and recipes that have come in for that. We're close to finalizing the edits on it. Just got the book cover finished in terms of design. That should be available over Thanksgiving weekend. And then I have 3 more book projects slated for next year. So if you want to get in on this, send me an email. I will definitely add you to the list for participation. And if you haven't already done so, pick up a copy of this exciting book, the book we're talking about today, Becoming Women of Worth, Stories of Hope and Faith. It's available on Amazon. These will make perfect Christmas gifts, even stocking stuffers, depending on how big your stocking is for the Christmas season. And I want to invite you, if you purchase a copy or you already have a copy and you've read it, I want to invite you to post an honest review of it on Amazon. It's easy to do. I want an honest review. I really want to hear what you think of it. What did you like? What didn't you like? What did you really appreciate about the book? What did you wish to see more of? Any kind of feedback, honest feedback, would love to have you do that. And before we wrap up, I want to just give our authors today an opportunity to share a word of encouragement for anyone interested in writing your story. If you're thinking about this and you've done some different kinds of writing maybe, but you haven't written your own story, maybe you've done some fiction writing, maybe you've written poetry, maybe you've written children's books, maybe something that you've heard today is just pressing on you, maybe the Holy Spirit is just pressing on you that you have a story to tell the world needs to hear, and you need a little encouragement. I want to give you a chance to hear a word of encouragement. Whether you're writing your story for publication or you're writing your story just for yourself as a way to heal and navigate the details of your own experience, I want to invite all of our authors to give us an encouraging word. Lynn, I'm going to start with you. What's your encouraging word for our listeners today?
Well, one thing I'm learning about the writing process is that it really helps me discover and even define, and it's like it solidifies what I believe. So sometimes I sit down at the computer and I have some ideas in my head, but it's as they come out and as I write and process through the story that I realize, oh my gosh, that's what I believe. That's what I've learned. That's how I've grown. That's what God did for me. So it's a discovery defining process for me. And the other thing I want to encourage them with is that reflection is so important. It's really how adults learn. We learn through processing and reflecting on our lives. And who schedules time for reflection in their daily calendar? But the writing process is so helpful when it comes to reflecting and looking back at our lives, seeing what we've learned, making adjustments, fine-tuning, and then ultimately helping us move forward.
I love that. I love that about the reflection. I completely agree. Thanks for sharing that, Lynn. And same question, what word of encouragement do you have for those sitting on the fence thinking about writing their story?
I really encourage people to write their true life story prayerfully. And the reason I say prayerfully is we're so often attacked or rejected by people who are clinging to their character roles and fictional storylines and are very threatened by anything that touches on the underlying reality. So we have to have a certain amount of strength to speak our truth, and this strength comes from God. But when we go to God, He'll let us know when we're ready and how to go about this process of sharing our truth. And when we speak the unabridged, non-fiction version of our lives, we quickly find out who our friends are and who in our lives isn't interested in the real deal. The good news is that for every person who leaves, another arrives who's more supportive of our growth and more engaging in this mutual unearthing of reality, which ultimately and wondrously takes us to God.
Wow, I love that. Mutual unearthing of reality. So powerful, so profound. Thanks, Anne, for sharing that. Donna, what words of encouragement do you have for our listeners today?
I guess the first thing is understand. God gave each of us talents and abilities, but you can do it. Sit down and get started. And we look at ourselves as writers, whether we're an author, a published writer, or whatever our role. We're all standing in line together. And, we touch the lives of readers. So whether that reader is just yourself, your spouse, your family, or a stranger that you will never meet, you have to understand that as writers, we hold each other's place in that line. We let someone else go first. We introduce one another. We help one another. And there are lots and lots and lots of writers out there willing to help you, whatever your role, wherever you are in that process. We all need one another.
I love that. Thank you for that. I especially loved what you said about, we're writing our story for readers, even if it's for ourselves. And I think about how blessed I am when I get to navigate my story on pen and paper, getting to make sense of it by reading it as the reader. It works for me as well. I can be the reader too, is my point, and be blessed by it. So that's really awesome. Marcy, let's hear from you. Give us a couple of words of encouragement for our listeners.
Yeah, I've got two main ones, and I think they sort of echo what the others have said as well. But one of my favorite quotes is from Flannery O'Connor, and he said, "I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say." And that is so true for me. I think that was my first reason ever for writing, because I just didn't get my own world until I put it down and then would reread what I'd written and go, oh, all these connections. Otherwise, it just floated around in my head and pestered me without any real peace or resolution. And once I got it written down and could reflect on what I'd written, as Lynn said, it just came together and it was so clear. And I think even in my free writing, God had space to interject and remind me of things and make those connection points that wasn't happening just on my own thinking about it, you know. So my first encouragement would be, whether you plan to publish or not, just write it. Write it. Write it. Let God have that space to speak to you as you write. Don't worry about editing or perfection or what it's saying. Just get your heart onto that paper and then reread it and have that different lens as a reader. And my second reason, as I shared earlier, is to be a source of comfort and encouragement and hope for those journeying the hard things that I have journeyed or am journeying. And part of that is to know that I'm not alone, that they're not alone, but also to be a voice. And yet I also mentioned how scary that is. And so there's another quote by Anne Voskamp that I have printed out and have hanging above my desk, which says, "Be brave. Your bravery wins 1,000 battles you can't see, because your bravery strengthens 1,000 others to win their battles too."
Beautiful.
I know that's been true for me, that the bravery of others has time and time again inspired my own bravery. And I believe that when we write our stories, we are taking the opportunity to allow our own bravery, our own putting this vulnerability out there to then and inspire bravery in others. And so that would be my second point, is even when it's scary, oh no, people will leave a bad review or a negative comment or somehow there will be a backlash because of this vulnerability. Cling to that. Cling to the fact that God is going to use your bravery to help 1,000 other battles you won. And you may never see that, but it's a ripple effect. And so, go out there and share your story, because it does have a purpose beyond just what we think.
So, you know, ladies, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for giving of your time, for sharing of your hearts, for, you know, taking the time to delve into your own personal journey and share that hope with all of us. What a gift you are to us and to those who will come along with us. And for those of you who tuned in to listen today, thank you also for your time. Thank you for joining us today. And I just want to offer up this quick prayer for you. May your cup runneth over with thoughts about yourself that are as precious as God's thoughts are about you. Until next time, cheers.